Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing all right today. And I would like to welcome you to another episode of the Brother Henry and You Show. Today I'm filling in for Brother Henry. My name is Taryn Harris, and I'm certainly glad to be with you today. Now, before we get into today's topic, first of all, I want to clarify something. Uh, I've been on the show on numerous occasions, being interviewed by Brother Henry and taking part in some of the panel discussions he's had over the last few years. And some of you may have wondered whether or not we were related. Well, I'm here to clarify that today. No, Brother Henry and I are not related. We just happen to have the same last name. Because Harris is a very common surname. And of course, for those of you who don't know the history of it, it's an English name. It derives from England, or over there in Great Britain. And it actually means the son of Harry, or Harry's son. And there are other, parts that go with it also. So I just wanted to put that out there so in case you were wondering. But again, I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to do this for Brother Henry because he had some things going on in his family and he asked me to do it and I told him I'd be more than glad to. So I'm very appreciative for this opportunity. And so the topic we're going to discuss for the next few minutes is how to deal with negative people. And I know that all of you out there have encountered many negative people over the years, and I know I have. And believe me, it can be very difficult to deal with negative people. I mean, it drains you, when you have any sort of interaction with negative people. They give off such a bad vibe, and you may be happy and jolly and and everything, and it seems like time they show up, all your energy just goes out. And they will ruin your day, but only if you allow them to. And see, that's what we're going to talk about today. And there are things that we can do in order to avoid that happening to us, these allowing these negative people to ruin our day. I mean, we don't like to be mean and rude to anybody, but at the same time, you don't want to let people run over you either, and sometimes those type of people will if you're not careful. So let's go ahead on and get into this discussion on how to deal with negative people. And the first thing that I would suggest is to reevaluate your connections. Once you discover that an individual or a group of people gives off a toxic spirit and a negative vibe, it is best to pay close attention to the way they make you feel, examining the emotional and spiritual effects they have on your life. Now, of course, you know that whenever you involve yourself with a negative person, they always tend to, try to zap you of your positive energy, and anything else that causes you to be upbeat, have a bright and cheerful spirit. They will do anything they possibly can to pull you down. And it's awful, that there are a lot of people in this world like that, but we know it is. So we just have to deal with it and the best we know how and go on. The second thing that I would like to mention when dealing with negative people is take control of your time. It is never a good idea to hang around negative people for an extended period of time, because in doing so, it can lead to a myriad of problems, both internally and externally. People who harbor negativity, whether it's in the form of anger, bitterness, hatred, or jealousy, tend to act as parasites, sucking the life out of you and leaving you feeling empty. Therefore, keep your visits and all interactions with such individuals short and to the point. So in other words, if you know people out there, they may be, and they could be relatives, and I think most of us have at least one relative in our family that's negative. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter how many accomplishments you make in your life, they're always going to find something wrong with it, and I don't know about you, but I try my best to stay away from those kind of people, whether it be going over to the house, phone calls, texts, emails, and you got some folks who have said, well, no matter how they act, they still family. And family is all you got. Well, if that's all I got, then apparently I ain't got nothing. Cause look here, like that old blues song from a long time ago said, I can do bad by myself. Now, here's the third topic, the third suggestion when it comes to dealing with negative people, and that is to set boundaries. When it comes to dealing with negative people, it's always a good idea to set boundaries. By doing so, you will protect yourself from virtually any form of abuse that being around those type of people can potentially cause. Additionally, setting boundaries lets them know what your limits are, and they will not be allowed to cross the line that you have drawn. Always remember that no matter what, your sanity and peace of mind is far more important than putting up with someone who is always putting you down. Regardless of the relationship, it doesn't matter if it's family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, or even church members. Negative people need to be limited to the access they have to you. And, sometimes these people will find ways to ease in there where you are. They'll do whatever it takes to get to you. And once they get to you, oh my God, you are in for it. And if you're like me, you just don't have time for mess. Life is much too short to be putting up with crap. And yes, I meant to say it, crap. I didn't cuss. But it's the truth. I mean, there's no reason for people to have to go through so much in their life on account of people who, just because they're dealing with something that's not good and they're going through things, they want to take their problems out on you and take their problems out on everybody else. But there's no reason for that. We have to learn how to work through our issues, and trust that regardless of what the situation is, things will turn around. and they will work out for our good. Now, here is suggestion number 4 when it comes to dealing with Native people. And that is, don't take it personal, but know that sometimes it is personal. Native people oftentimes have a roundabout way of tearing you down. And I know from personal experience, believe me, because I've been through this many times over the years. Sometimes they will use code words and catchphrases, or they'll throw out little hints in order to try to make you feel bad about yourself. Be it a condescending remark, which can almost be an attack on your character, or the type of criticism that they themselves may consider to be constructive, but in actuality, it is destructive. In addition, Native people like to use comparison when describing things about others, such as, one thing about so-and-so, he always came by to check on me, when he lived in the neighborhood or what have you. When we worked together, he always made sure that I was doing all right. Or, I miss the way so-and-so used to do this or that. When they resort to making statements such as these, they are basically discrediting you and the way you live, work, do, and serve in an indirect manner. The main reason why they do such things and make such remarks is because oftentimes they are too coward to come and face you directly and tell you exactly what they think and how they feel. So, therefore, the only way they know how to get their point across is to beat around the bush. They won't come to you, but they'll talk to somebody who may be close to you and that knows you pretty well, and they'll whisper things to them and say, and they like to go. See, that's another thing about negative people. They like to dig up the past on folk. Well, I remember when you was this, and like I remember when you was all out in the street, you was drinking and hanging out in the club all night long, and you was out there hoe chasing, and you all out there, and they love that kind of stuff. People love to, negative people now I'm talking about, they love to dig up the past, because now you're going on with your life. You're not bothering anybody. You're trying to live decently, going to work every day, doing the best you can, and here come these, as the old folks said, sapsuckers. Because that's what they are, and they want to say all kind of stuff and do things to pull you back down, take you back to square one, because if it seems like you're making changes in your life, trying to do better and trying to go in a new direction, they can't stand that. Oh, they hate it because, see, they're not going anywhere. And see, if they can keep you right there with them, that's two of y'all not going anywhere together. and that's not gonna work. Now here is the 5th suggestion in how to deal with negative people, and that is, do not pretend that their behavior is okay. A lot of times people think that it's perfectly all right for them to talk to you or treat you any old kind of way. This can especially be true for parents, grandparents, or other older relatives, and even older people in general, and those who are in positions of leadership, such as pastors, school teachers, principals, supervisors, co-workers. You know, especially those coworkers who've been on the job a long time and have built up a great deal of seniority in the company, and who have a good deal of influence. You know, it's usually those who have some type of influence, and you mix that with a negative vibe and, you know, a contaminated spirit. Those type of people tend to want to run to the boss and lie on you, snitch on you, try to get you in trouble, and God forbid, get you fired. I've been there, you know, because I've had coworkers who went back and snitched on me to the supervisor, and you know, they said all kinds of stuff. They made up, and I was doing my job. You know, I was minding my own business. Wouldn't bother anybody. Most definitely wouldn't bother them. But they couldn't stand the fact that my job performance came across as a lot better than theirs. You know, I was more productive than they were. And so they had to, you know, kind of make up stuff, you know, to try to make me look bad in front of the supervisor and in front of our coworkers and things. And I'm sure there are many of you out there who have dealt with that in the past, or who knows, could be dealing with that right now. Well, all I can tell you is that if you hold on, I promise you, it's going to get better. Because sooner or later, either you will be moved out that environment, or, speaking from experience, those individuals who are always trying to cut your throat and stab you in your back will be moved out that environment. Rest assured, regardless of what happens, everything is going to be all right. Now, here is the sixth and final suggestion when it comes to dealing with negative people. And that is, don't make their problems your problems. It is often said that misery loves company. And when it comes to negative people, this is always the case. Negative people who mope around day in and day out with a woe is me type of mentality are always on the prowl, seeking whose happiness they can devour. They wait in the wings as they search out their victims, ready to attack at any given moment. Stealing people's joy is the order of the day, and nothing brings them more excitement than causing grief and frustration to those whose aura is always positive and whose attitude is always pleasant. Therefore, they have no problems unloading their problems on you, because they hate the fact that you're always happy and they're not. They want to have a pity party, but they don't want to have it by themselves. So it is for that reason that they welcome any and all guests to come and partake of their sadness and sorrow. And, you know, I can't stand to be around folk like that. I mean, we all go through things in life. We all have days when we're feeling down and out, and we don't know how we're going to make it. We don't know if we're going to make it. But there's no reason to drag other folk into your situation, you know? Because if you got somebody in your life, or it could be a complete stranger, who goes out of their way to try to lift you up, then the least you can do is, you know, adhere to that, you know, and welcome that love into your life, and try to make things better for yourself, you know? I mean, who wants to spend their life, as short as it is on this planet, in misery and discontent, you know, and total unhappiness? That's not a good life. So, I mean, I hope that something I've said today has help somebody out there. And I really hope that if you're dealing with any negativity in your life, that you will find peace and joy and happiness in one way or another. Okay? So again, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for having me as a guest host today. I am truly grateful. And again, I would like to say thank you to Brother Henry for inviting me to do this. And I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this broadcast. And be sure to tune in again next time for another episode of the Brother Henry and You Show. So on that note, I hope that you all have a very good day. Or if it's at night, I hope you have a good night's rest. And I'll talk to you later.